Welcome to the Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin podcast. We present cold case crimes that we feel can and should be solved with your help. We provide the facts of the case and the research that we have done. Then web sleuths like you help us solve the mystery and provide the victim, family, community, and law enforcement with justice and peace of mind. This is Solve Crimes. Okay, welcome to Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin. I am Rick.
I am Gavin. We also have last names. We're not like Beyonce or Madonna,
No.
Cher.
We're getting there.
We are like Beyonce, Madonna, and Cher, just not in that way.
And we're not telling you in which way we are.
Not even going to spill those beans.
Mystery that you get to solve all on your own.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's good to be back with you, Rick, though.
Well, you know, we're both wearing our slick new Solve Crimes polos.
We've got our merch.
People on the podcast can't see it.
That we're wearing. If you go to solvecrimes.tv, you too could be the next new owner of Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin merch. So check us out, solvecrimes.tv.
That's right. We have don't we have an item on there that you can use it as a mask or as a bikini?
Yes, both of those things.
Combo, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You just need to tie a knot in the middle. But it's stretchy, so it'll work.
It's really up to you. It depends on
yeah
which beach you're going to. Or in the privacy of your own home.
Yes. You know, we don't judge. You do.
Well, we do.
Well, we don't judge and broadcast it, though. We judge in private.
Not yet. We'll get there. So we do we have a topic today, Gavin?
Actually, yeah. The stuff I want to talk to you about today was kind of a rabbit hole that I've been going down the last few weeks. We're going to be publishing a video on this on our YouTube channel probably this week about this topic. Right. It has to do with the case of Amanda Wienckowski. If you're new to our channel.
Just when you thought there wasn't any more.
Oh, yeah, I know. If you're new to the channel, though, go back and listen to previous podcasts. Just search Amanda Wienckowski or go to our YouTube channel. We've got, I think, 5 videos now, 5 chapters, but then we did a couple live streams too.
In all seriousness, it seems like it was more.
Yeah, but this next one will be chapter 6, and I've titled the chapter "The Stun Gun."
What's it about?
I know. I'm not terribly creative when it comes to titles. I like to just go right to the point.
Yeah, I guess so.
But that's what I kind of wanted to share with you guys today, and then.
So let's start with here. I'll just interview you. How's that?
Do it. Lay it on me.
So someone close to the case that we can't really mention by name, but someone close to the case. Has been involved in the case way longer than us. I mean, they've been involved in it from the very beginning, back in 2010 or something, shortly after this all happened. So they have always felt that they had looked over the photos of the autopsy, and they'd always felt that there was this one photo that bothered them, right?
Yes.
And they had a feeling that it was stun gun marks, now that you've already announced that. So you took that.
Well, I ignored it for a while.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. This person told me that belief, that suspicion, pretty much the first week that we met. And I just kind of was overloaded. And then I came up with a strategy that I looked at everything kind of like a domino, and I needed to knock down the first domino before the rest of them could fall. And I still haven't knocked down that domino. That domino to me is change the cause and manner of death. That has to change before anything else really can happen in this case.
Right.
And that still hasn't happened. But as I went back and that person mentioned it to me again after we had done so much investigation in this, you and I, Rick, that I kind of felt like, hey, this might help us knock down this domino. So I went back and I looked at the autopsy photos. So let me describe what it is that you see. And in our YouTube video, we've gotten permission by Amanda's mom or from Amanda's mom to actually share photos, autopsy photos for the first time. Mm-hmm. They're going to be cropped, man. I'm not going to show any of the gory stuff. But basically on the right side of Amanda Wienckowski's face, right on her jawline, kind of like if you're going from the chin up to the ear, it's only about an inch up from the chin. Mm-hmm. There are these two marks that look like stab wounds, but they look like it would be like a round. It wasn't like a knife. It would be something that is symmetrical, you know?
Oh, very.
And
it's not a natural thing.
No.
Very clear.
No. And they're spaced apart in a way, and they're in a line. Now, of course, 2 points, there's always a line between 2 points, but it's like right on the line of the jaw. It's like, boom, right there. Mm-hmm. And I thought, is it possible that these really are, I guess, marks from a stun gun?
Well, when you first showed that to me, that it looked obvious to me. I mean, obviously for my little background in this, it just as a layman looking at it, it didn't look like, she fell on a lamp, or it didn't look like a doorknob. It was very clear. And considering we're looking at autopsy photos, naturally your brain goes to that,
Yeah. Now, there's a weirdness about the autopsy photos, by the way. And this could be a show all on its own, but Amanda Wienckowski was found frozen. And there is a process, and you and I have confirmed this with a coroner down south too, Rick. Like, there's a process. When somebody comes in frozen, it's a standard procedure that body is brought to cool room temperature over the course of like 2 weeks. Think about like defrosting a turkey in your refrigerator around Thanksgiving, right? It takes days to do that.
Yes.
They did not do that with Amanda Wienckowski.
And explain how that affects the autopsy and what they're finding at the moment.
So I will, because it's super important.
It is.
What they did is they left Amanda Wienckowski in the examination room. And I haven't been to the examination room at Erie County.
Right.
But I've been told that...
Something tells me they aren't going to let us in there.
I doubt it. But I've been told that those rooms are cool. Mm-hmm. They're around 60 degrees, something like that, Fahrenheit. So they just left her out overnight. And then the following morning, they started the autopsy. And it was like less than 24 hours between the time she was found.
And what is standard operating procedure?
The standard procedure is put her in the cool room, which is just above freezing. It's like between 32 and 36 degrees, and keep her in there until her core body temperature makes it up to that cool room level. Right. And the reason that's important is because if you just leave them out, then the body starts to decay on the surface, and they're still frozen in the middle. So anyway, that's what they did. But here's the other thing, and getting back to your question. On the day of her autopsy, her skin was bright red. Bright red. So it was very difficult to see any type of lesion or any type of anything on her body that was red. And on her face in particular, there was a lot of blood on her face. So the blood was kind of covering it. And the skin was kind of the same color as it being those two wounds, I guess.
Right.
So, but then they later went back and took photos so the autopsy was performed on the 10th of January, and they came back and took more photos on the 12th and on the 14th.
But the autopsy had already been performed.
Yes. Yeah. The autopsy report, which came out the following 5th of February, noted that she had contusions on her face, but it called them blue. First of all, I have no idea why they were described as blue. Blue 1/8 inch round, like contusions on her face.
It makes me wonder if they were going by maybe memory and hadn't referred to the photos when they did that, or they jotted that down prior to the photos.
I mean, that's possible. My suspicion is she was a junkie, and junkies are found like this all the time. I think that whole autopsy was cut and paste.
Mm-hmm. I've said that from the very beginning, that she was just a throwaway to them. And I don't mean that they sat down and made a decision, oh, Amanda Wienckowski's a throwaway. They see a lot of this and made a decision that this is what it is, swept under the rug, onto the next one.
Yeah. But see, on the 10th, when those photos were taken, you could barely tell that there was anything wrong with the side of her face. But when you go back and look at the ones taken on the 12th and on the 14th, where the flesh of her skin is now the color of her flesh,
right,
and all of the blood has been cleaned off and everything like that, there are 2 like stab wounds on her jaw.
Yep.
And then there's more
also,
than that.
what was there are like 3 dots that come up and then a bruise.
Okay, yeah. So if you draw a line between the 2 dots on her jawline, then you draw a line perpendicular to that, so it's kind of like a cross. Mm-hmm. That vertical line is moved more, it's not perfectly centered. It's off closer to the wound that is closer to her ear. But there are 3 marks that travel up. And
they're tiny.
And they're tiny. In fact, they almost look like acne, but they're in a perfect line. Mm-hmm. And I was actually talking about this with Nick Crowley, the YouTuber that you and I both know, that very successful YouTuber. He goes, I wonder if those are arc burn marks. I went, son of a gun, Nick Crowley, that is probably the smartest thing I've ever heard you say. And you say a lot of smart things. That's what I think they are, because upon closer examination of that wound closer to your ear, I think there are 2 stab marks there. They're just very close together. So it's possible. What I'm envisioning here, Rick, is a stun gun. You know, those things will do 100,000, 200,000 volts. I imagine Antoine Garner or somebody else reaching around her and jabbing that into her jaw, and then she kind of squirms, and one electrode is still in her and the other one kind of comes off, and it just goes pop, 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 zaps her.
Let's explain to people, because we've learned a few things, as we have many, many times in this case, the difference between a stun gun, you know what I mean, and a
taser.
And a taser, yeah, because we weren't aware of that until this.
Yeah, so nomenclature is actually pretty important here. A taser is a brand of electronic or electrical weapon, but the word taser is pretty much used as a description of like a gun that police use that fire electrodes that are attached by these little microfilaments. So it shoots 2 electrodes at you. It hits you, they attach, they're barbed like a fish hook, and then it electrocutes you, right?
And just for, I don't know, for more education, taser is actually an acronym.
What is it for?
Tom A. Swift Electric Rifle.
So he's the inventor.
Tom Swift is the one that invented it, yeah. So it's not but it's pretty perfect both ways, right?
Yeah. So it's like the way that we use Kleenex in the States, right? Tissue paper we call Kleenex, or in Great Britain they call all vacuums Hoovers, or all speakers to noise. That's the way taser has kind of become. It's a brand name, but that's usually what we mean by taser. Now, you may not know this, Rick. I learned this from my friend Heather, who's the police chief, Heather, here in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. Once you fire the taser, if you miss, you can still use the electrodes on the tip of that gun.
You throw it at somebody?
No, you can jab it into them and pull the trigger, and you can still electrocute them. It has electrodes on the front.
Got it.
So a stun gun, and what makes this confusing is that it uses the word gun, which makes you think it's shooting electrodes, right? But
right.
a stun gun is defined as a handheld device that has electrodes permanently affixed to it, mounted to it, that you manually jab into somebody and pull a trigger. I think, like when I was a kid, we called those cattle prods. Right. That's what were used on cattle.
Cattle prods.
It's handheld. Yeah.
And because no one can see how you're
I'm talking with
motioning,
my hands,
we're on a podcast, I know. But the point is that we know this case very well. We know that Antoine Garner, number one, he kept a stun gun on him, which doesn't surprise me at all based on what we know of him and his career path, I guess. But also we know that he was 6'5", 350. He didn't just walk up and touch her on the face. He put everything into it. Oh yeah, that's why the bruising. We both kind of think that.
Yeah. Now that's the other thing that there. So now if we look at that, if we go back to our imaginary lines, right, the kind of cross. If you go below the jawline, the line between those two wounds, there is a bruise that is round and has like 3 rectangular bruises protruding out of the bottom of it. It doesn't look organic.
Right.
So that could either be something from maybe the bezel of the stun gun. I don't know if that's a good word.
Well, we've noticed that a lot of the brands have a flashlight down there.
Yeah, possible.
So it could be the lens of the flashlight, right?
Or the other thing I thought was if he had like a ring on his thumb, something, he jabbed it in there, but there's a bruise.
Right.
So we believe that Amanda Wienckowski was stunned in the head prior to being assaulted or during her assault. Now, why is that important? This is actually very important.
From a legal standpoint.
From a legal standpoint. Do you want to explain that?
Sure. I mean, to kind of quickly reiterate what we're looking for here, we all feel that we know, even the police know who killed Amanda. We're very clear on that. So the problem that we have is that the police were reportedly about to arrest Antoine Garner for her murder back in 2009 after actually some really, really good police work, leading up to that. The rug was pulled out from under the police department in Buffalo because the ME report came out and said that it was not a crime. Right. So they had to put the brakes on. You can't arrest somebody for not a crime. So what we've been tasked with when we started getting involved in this was we needed to, number one, change the ME's report, and number two, because of the laws in New York State, because we all assumed that Antoine, how the whole thing came about and how she ended up in the garbage can, we figured that Antoine would probably, if he had a decent defense attorney, would probably say, well, she died and we didn't know what to do with her, so we just dumped her, and that would be his excuse, right? Because there would be no proof of actual physical murder.
Right.
So, and that is a misdemeanor, which has expired.
Well, it could either just be, at the time it would have been, okay.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right. There's also another option that could be a felony, but it still has a statute of limitations, right? So
both of them have expired.
Correct. So the
at
misdemeanor
this point,
being,
we need to prove murder.
Yeah, the misdemeanor being, we were doing drugs and she overdosed and died, and I didn't know what to do, so I dumped the body.
Right.
And I'm sorry to go off. This is a tangent to a tangent, but
yeah.
New York State fixed that problem with Amanda Lynn's Law, named after Amanda Wienckowski.
Right.
So it no longer is a misdemeanor if you dump a body or try to hide an accidental death. Right. That now is a felony. But the other felony being, you know what, she came over, she's a prostitute, we were having rough sex, I killed her accidentally. That's manslaughter. Manslaughter would be a felony, but it still has a 5-year statute of limitations.
Yes.
Okay, so
and we're well beyond that.
Right. So why is the taser important in light of that conversation?
Well, again, we need to prove murder at this point because there is no statute of limitations on murder. So there are several things that we were looking for. One of them being that we found out that in New York State, if someone dies during another felony, right?
Yeah.
Which could be payment for sex or purchasing of drugs in that moment, right?
Yeah, the payment for sex thing is hard. Like, that's hard to get to murder. But if it was a drug transaction, if she came in and was buying drugs, they're now both committing a felony.
Yep.
He's selling them, she's buying them.
And she dies during that process, it's murder.
Correct.
And we know from Patterson that he claims that he was taking her there to buy drugs. And we have Antoine Garner himself in an interview that was broadcast in Buffalo. I think it was 2010. It was somewhere around there.
November.
Yeah. And at least 4 times, I lost count. At least 4 times he says to the interviewer that she was there just to buy drugs, he says, because he's thinking he has to make sure that nobody thinks he killed her. But little does he know he's admitting to a felony, which may lead to murder. So the stun gun adds to that, right?
Yeah, okay. So nobody accidentally stuns somebody in the head with a stun gun.
Yeah.
That is showing intent to cause harm. So if
to incapacitate someone, that's the whole purpose of a stun gun.
Correct. So if we can prove that Amanda Wienckowski was stunned in the head prior to her being strangled, then that is definitely murder, for sure.
Yes. Yep. So thankfully, if everything goes the way we want this to go, we may have an even more, solid case than just the drug purchase.
Correct. Now, the big if on all this, Rick, of course, as you know, is can we prove that that is a stun gun wound? So we talked to Dr. Kenneth Clark. That makes him sound so distinguished because he is. The guy has amazing credentials.
Yeah.
So if you watch our show a lot, he's Kenny. Kenny, our doctor friend, right?
And here's a sentence I never thought I would say. He's our in-house pathologist.
Correct. Kenny is a quadruple board certified pathologist. So it's like neuropathology, anatomic pathology, forensic pathology, and clinical pathology. I think those are the 4.
And he's got more too, doesn't he?
Well,
isn't he an electrical engineer?
Before he went to medical school, he got his bachelor's of science in electrical engineering. So he's an EE. Yeah, which is electrical engineer.
Overachiever.
He's a big achiever. So we talked to him about it, and this will be in the video on the channel. There is a way to prove whether it's a stun gun or not. And actually, before I get into that, I found another guy who wants to remain nameless, who is he's like an expert witness. That's his gig.
Yeah.
He has a PhD in something, I guess, impressive, and he specifically focuses on
unlike your description.
I know it's an unimpressive description, but I don't want to give away who he is because he specifically asked not to be involved.
Right.
He has a PhD in something very impressive, and he specializes in electrode weapons, so taser and stun gun, cattle prods, electrocution, like the electric chair, those kinds of things is what he specializes in. And I sent him the photos, and his response was kind of okay, in court, I couldn't say from these photos, this definitely is a stun gun wound. Or he actually even said that I couldn't say that it's likely that it's a stun gun wound because there just isn't enough data. Had they suspected that it was a stun gun wound at the autopsy and they taken better photos, I probably could. And then in that email to me, he responded, but here are some pictures of other stun gun wounds.
Which let you compare.
And it was just like, yeah, this is a stun gun wound.
Well, because to go back, before you got that email, Kenny had the same thing. He said, I can't tell just from this, and what was the conclusion of both of them as far as like what we have to do in order to prove it?
Yeah. So Kenny described to us exactly what we have to do. So in order to prove that Amanda Wienckowski was stunned, that she was electrocuted, we would have to exhume her body. We would then hope that she was embalmed well enough that her body is still in good enough condition.
Right.
Assuming that that part of her face hasn't decayed away, a pathologist would take a biopsy of that skin. And then they have a machine that, and when Kenny first described it to me, I thought that they were shaving it from the top down, from like the epidermis down through the dermis. But what they do is they turn it and they take like 2-micron thick sections so that on one side of it, it's the epidermis, and on the other side, it's the dermis, right? So it's taking a cross section of that skin.
Right.
And then they have to look at that under magnification, and there are telltale signs of whether or not something has happened electrically.
Yes.
Yeah, and he describes that in the video.
But the purpose behind this is twofold. One is to prove whether or not there was a stun gun and electrical activity in there, right?
Right.
And then the second thing is in order for us to force the ME to relook at the autopsy and the findings that they came up with, we have to find something new.
Yeah, that's so important. I'm glad you brought that up, Rick. There has to be new evidence. So this is another New York State statute, and
it's ridiculous.
And I'm sure that this statute exists in all 50 states. Something like this does.
Yeah.
But basically, you have a certain amount of time to present evidence from the time that you know about it.
Right.
So let's go back to the 6-monoacetylmorphine. Now, there's a good argument to be made that on February 11th, 2021, we got an expert to tell us there's no 6-monoacetylmorphine in her urine. That means she didn't overdose. That's new information, right? But there's an argument to be made that Leslie got that toxicology report back in 2017, and she had the duty to know everything about toxicology and to know that the absence of 6-monoacetylmorphine was important. So likely, now we're going to argue this one for sure, but there's a chance that we may not be able to use that to reopen the case, even though it's a freaking silver bullet, man. That absence of 6-monoacetylmorphine. Apparently in New York, Leslie had the duty to know all of that as she's grieving for her daughter and looking at toxicology reports for the very first time.
Right.
But if we exhume Amanda and we do that biopsy, we do that test, and we find that she was indeed electrocuted on her face, that definitely is new information that nobody has looked at.
It stinks that someone, a human being, a citizen of the state of New York, has to exhume their daughter from her grave twice in order to get the Erie County Medical Examiner's Office to do the right thing.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
All because politically they can't admit that they may, even if they said may, it'd be better than what they're doing. They're fighting it because they don't want to, I'm sure they don't want to open the floodgates to people who have, had findings from that office that they didn't like, from, people who were prosecuted successfully based on those findings. I mean, I get that it opens a floodgate, but they got to do the right thing at the end of the day.
You know what their behavior reminds me of? You know those undercover, news, protecting consumer stories where they'll put a hidden camera under, in a car, and they'll take a woman to a mechanic, have her drop off the car that's making the sound. There's really nothing wrong with the car.
Yeah.
And then the mechanic comes back and says, well, your blinker fluid is low and the rotary arm attached to the widget girder, all that crap. This behavior reminds me of that Dr. Verdes is like, no, it's an accident, and I don't care what you think. Sometimes stories are sad, and people overdose, and I'm sorry, you don't know, because I am the physician here, and I am the one that did the autopsy, and they kind of hide behind that expertise, right?
Yeah.
And they're so obviously wrong.
Right. Well, again, they made assumptions when they did the autopsy, and they made assumptions after the autopsy when they were questioned. They made assumptions that Amanda's mom, Leslie, wouldn't have the staying power, the fortitude, or the money to fight them and prove them wrong. And they were incorrect. If she hadn't been the bulldog that she is on this, we wouldn't be involved, and all of this stuff, all this movement, wouldn't be happening. And it's unfortunate, but we're
one of the things
bent
that
on getting this done.
We've never mentioned, and Leslie's okay with us mentioning this, it just hasn't been part of the story. This battle since January 9th, 2009, it actually started December 7th, 2008, when Amanda was missing. She was already dead a couple days, but that's when she found out she was missing. So December 7th, 2008 until now, Leslie lost a home. Mm-hmm. And at one point had to declare bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So it's not that she had the money to fight. She lost everything. She lost everything.
Yeah.
Except her family. Well, I mean, her kids. She lost her husband, right? She has sacrificed so much over this.
And this has put an incredible amount of pressure and strain, even with her relationship with her remaining kids
and grandkids.
That's right.
Yeah, and for what? I mean, and members of the community have chipped in to pay for things. Mm-hmm. Radio hosts and some private benefactors. There have been a lot of people that have stepped up and have helped.
And FYI,
for
to
what?
Continue to help, if you are listening to this and you would like to help Leslie, on our website at solvecrimes.tv, if you go to the Amanda case page, we in our shop we have a T-shirt that would help raise some funds for if we end up doing this third or the second exhumation, right?
Yeah, in fact, we have pricing on all that. It is not going to be cheap. And so we have designed a T-shirt. It's blue. It's the same color.
He was saying that the exhumation wasn't cheap, not the shirt.
Right, right. No,
the shirt's affordable.
The shirt is definitely affordable. The T-shirt is the same color as the garbage can that Amanda was found in. And we're trying to sell those shirts to raise money to pay for this test, because we really believe we have multiple witnesses that said that Antoine Garner had a stun gun, people who saw it, and we believe, based on feedback from several people, that she was stunned. We feel justified, and Leslie, because not only is she a bulldog, but she's got the fortitude of, I can't even describe, a granite cliff, right?
Yep.
She's willing to do it. She's willing to exhume her daughter.
She didn't even blink.
She didn't even blink.
Yeah.
So if that's what it takes, let's do it.
Yep.
So,
So please, if you are interested in this case and you've been following it, or you just heard about it and would like to help Leslie, and you don't have thousands to give her, buying a T-shirt, it adds up. It does help.
Yeah.
Because it is going to take a lot to get through, to the end, and hopefully it'll be two bullets for this case. One for the forcing the ME's office to re-examine their findings, and then the second bullet would be the helping us prove murder.
Yeah. So that's where we stand on the Amanda Wienckowski case, Rick.
Is that all?
That's it.
Yeah. So be sure to follow our companion. Well, they're both companions to each other. Our YouTube channel. We'll have this week. We'll have a new episode, basically going in way more detail and giving more visuals naturally to all the stuff that we just discussed.
When I talked with Kenny and interviewed him on this particular subject, he brought out his old teaching files, because let's not forget that Kenny was a college professor, a forensics professor.
Because he didn't feel accomplished enough.
He didn't. He needed to add to his resume, apparently. He opened up his teaching files and he showed me exactly what he would expect to find with an electrocution. And he described it all out. And I think most of that isn't going to make the episode, but we'll do a bonus episode with the entire thing so that everybody can see that whole conversation.
Right.
So,
well, that will be good stuff. I do want to, this isn't about Amanda, but I do want to kind of discuss a little bit, because we've been so busy with the Amanda case and with some other things that we're working on that we'll be announcing shortly. I think we kind of didn't, I don't know if you agree with this, I don't think that we really gave the focus to the Judy Hakari case having a witness come forward. I think we kind of...
I think you're right.
I think we need to delve in. I mean, we have a lot of people who are interested in that case. We hear it all the time.
They wonder about
your niece, right?
Oh, yes. Hi, Ashton.
You see how I gave you another shout out there, Ashton?
That's good. He's trying to buy your love, Ashton. But I know that when I made you that tricolor rotini when you were 2 years old, that I had your heart. She still talks about that, Rick.
Does she really?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to send her a tricolored T-shirt. But she's not alone. We get a lot of comments. We have friends and strangers who have been following this case. It was our very first case, so they've been following it, and they're as amazed as we are that things keep coming up with this thing after 51 years.
Now, I want to be the defender of Rick and Gavin here for a second. We knew when Rex reached out to us, and after we talked to him a couple times, we knew we had something big here.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of ways that this could go. Number one is Rex did see what he saw. Mm-hmm. Number two, he's a crazy person and he made it all up. And I guess number three, he could be the perpetrator of it. He could be the perpetrator. Right? At 12 years old, I find that unlikely, but it's possible.
Let's just really briefly, in case you don't know about the story, this Rex came to us from our website. He had found our website searching for Judy's name because he, according to him, was a witness to her abduction. And up until that point, there was zero information that anyone witnessed anything. In the press, including law enforcement, the case file has zero. So this was a bombshell.
Okay, let me go back to Rick and Gavin apologist mode for a second, okay? We knew we had something extremely important here.
Yeah.
And so the first thing we did is, after we recorded Rex, he knew we were doing this. Yes. We handed it over to the Sacramento Sheriff's Department.
And he knew we were doing that too.
Yes. We
made that very clear.
Correct. We want to give that information to the authorities who matter, who could actually, follow up and close the case and everything.
Right.
It's not unexpected that a 50-year-old case probably isn't in the hierarchy of what's most important in the detective's life. It's probably not at the top of that list.
Right.
So has it been a month? Maybe more?
It's been longer than that. It's been a couple months.
So so we want you to know that we haven't moved on. We've just been kind of, let's wait and see what the detective says.
Yeah. I mean, we have made it clear from the beginning, not only with our, viewing audience and listening audience, but also with the law enforcement authorities who are involved in this directly in this case, the ones that handle it, that we, by all means, do not want to be a hindrance. We want to be a help, because we know that they're, law enforcement, very rarely are there departments that only handle cold cases. You know what I mean? They're overloaded with current cases and cold cases that are only 5 years old, where there's actually a chance to close them, whereas these 51-year-old cases are much more difficult because of the way crime scenes were handled, DNA was handled, if there was any, that kind of thing.
I wonder what the close rate is in like a regular metropolitan area.
It goes right to the data.
I know I do, but it's probably not as good as most of us think. I think there's a lot.
No, but I do think that it's obviously the advancement in DNA research and all that kind of stuff has
their close rate
I
now is probably better than it was 50 years ago, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The whole DNA thing is
like you said, it's 51 years old.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. I mean, we took the approach of, like you said, we wanted to kind of do a preliminary interview, 2 interviews with him to, number one, try and trip him up and try to validate some of the things that he said, because we didn't want to call up the Sacramento Sheriff's Department and say, hey, we've got this kooky, crazy guy who says he was, we wanted to at least do a little bit of vetting on our own. And we also felt, and I had a discussion with the deputy detective in charge, and I said, the other thing that we felt was that he might be a little more open to us rather than being interviewed by police, right? And they she agreed with that. So we did an audio interview, then we did a video interview, and we tried to trip him up. We were, I was going at one angle, he was talking about, I grabbed her hand and I said, what color were her shoes? Like trying to really, trip him up. And you had Google Maps open and you're asking him about which direction and what street and which name of the street and what was there. And I mean, we were really hammering him.
Dude, he passed with flying colors.
He took it. Yeah. Yeah. And some people have questioned his memory, like why would a 12-year-old kid, now he's 63, why would he have, that was a pretty big event. In anyone's life, that would be a big event. So it's pretty fused.
Oh, and plus
memory.
At age 12, crying out loud, I can remember my wardrobe at age 12. Like I know what I bought for my school clothes when I was 12. And it's not like I'm a spring chicken. That was 33 years ago. And
yeah,
there are things that stick with us.
So like, to go to your point, I mean, we haven't dropped this thing. We're trying to move along at the, after 51 years, you can't just go out and hold a press conference. We got to take this thing. It's a little on the slower side for many reasons, and a lot of it's out of our hands as far as how quickly the police look at it. But we turned the video over to them right away within a week of us filming it, and so they've had it for
unedited. They had everything. Yeah.
Unedited, yes. So we put that up. We did do a live stream on our YouTube channel discussing it. We played small little clips of it, but we will be doing another episode eventually, hopefully on the soon side, that gives a little more information and more footage that people can see, Rex and his thoughts on everything. So we're still digging into it, but it's such a bombshell. I mean, I don't even know if we wrapped our brain around it when it happened, when he came forward.
No. Well, it came so out of the blue. Mm-hmm. They all come out of the blue. We should expect the unexpected.
Yes,
because
we're getting to that point. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's a good recap on the Hakari case. We're expect more, and as far as Amanda Wienckowski, we've got you up to date, and I think we prepped people pretty well for the next YouTube video that we'll be putting up this week. Today's Monday that we're recording this. We'll have this podcast up, and so if anybody's listening, by weekend, we should have the episode up, and you'll be able to.
You can find our YouTube channel by just going to our website, solvecrimes.tv. There's a link right up in the corner. You can click on the YouTube thing, and you'll get right there.
Funny enough, we've actually really quickly, if you type in "solve crimes" on YouTube, we come up pretty quick now.
Yeah, we do.
In some cases, the very first, which is pretty awesome.
Maybe we could open the kimono just a little bit on this. It's kind of
podcast.
Yeah. Hey, I wish we had sound effects, right?
Everybody, Gavin's naked right now.
Hey, in a kimono. Okay, so it's cool.
But you opened it, dude. Shut it.
You hear a door.
My eyes.
No, but building a YouTube channel is actually pretty tough. Mm-hmm. And it's why many people just decide not to do it. It's pretty tough.
Well, they started and they give up because it's tough got to keep up the pace.
Yeah, you really do. And while our channel is still a modest little channel of 1,100 and something subscribers, we feel extremely grateful for the following that we're getting already. We feel like we're way ahead of the pace that we set for ourselves.
Well, we thought it would be, a year before we hit 1,000?
Yeah, and we got it about 6 months, something like that. Mm-hmm. So Yeah, so thanks everybody for watching. If you haven't subscribed, that is another way that you can support us, is just subscribe to the channel, watch the videos. It helps.
That's the beauty of the effort that we're doing, is that the more people that view, the more eyeballs, I like to say, see the videos that we do. Obviously it helps us, but it also helps these cases, and we've proven that over and over again. Rex is one of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Linda is another, right? With Carol Beth Hilburn. So
eyeballs help everyone. So subscribing and clicking that little bell so that you get alerted when we put out a new episode, sharing these stories, especially if you live in the area where these happen, like in Buffalo for Amanda and Sacramento for Judy Hakari and Carol Beth Hilburn, that sharing them on Facebook and in forums with friends, it really, really help solve these cases.
Indeed it does. That's probably a good place to stop, huh, Rick?
Yep, I think so. Will you please close the kimono?
Yeah, it is closed.
All right, bye, everybody.
How would you even know
time.
It's open? I just look like a bear. I have like a brown cashmere body jumpsuit.
That's not a jumpsuit. All right, we should end here before it gets any worse.
It can't get worse than that. See you later, everyone.
All right, there you go, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin podcast. Please subscribe to keep up to date with the cases that we feature. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Solve Crimes with Rick and Gavin, and you can find us on virtually all social media. You can find out more information about our channel and the things that we're up to by visiting our website, solvecrimes.tv.